The issue with the Nigerian maritime safety, I believe you're talking generally about safety and security.
Yes.
It's common to everyone in the industry, both locally and internationally. One that takes priority is security at the moment. That is not to say that there are no safety issues in respect to protecting the environment against activities of legitimate activities of shipping companies in the environment. But what has taken prominence right now is the security, and that is because these involve significant number of kidnappings. In 2020, record shows about 130 kidnappings in the Gulf of Guinea, and these numbers are staggering. It scares everyone because it affects seafarers. We have to understand the importance of seafarers here. Whatever affects the seafarer has the tendency to distort the entire cycle. Now it has now become personal issue for the seafarers. They're worried, will they want to go to this environment because their families suffer whenever there is a kidnap.
Okay.
Families are traumatized, and regardless of what security measures you put in place, if I don't feel comfortable going into an environment, I will not be able to go to that environment. And if I don't go to that environment, in an environment where I'm critically needed, then you find out that the entire world will suffer. But most importantly, I want us to look at the impact that this insecurity has on seafarers. Seafarers have been recognized as key workers, number one workers in the world, and truly they are. If shipping moves 90% of our cargoes all over the world, then those who are responsible for moving these cargoes should be taken care of at their safety in terms of their safety and security before you get into the welfare and all that, which can be addressed strategically. Two things: in reality and in perception. Now, the issue with maritime crime is that which, if you have two kidnappings in a particular region, then the perception becomes very significant, unlike a situation in the land, because the land is relatively controlled. Because the sea is not, it's very difficult for you to even police the sea. If you have to deploy assets sufficient to police the sea, the cost is highly significant. So yes, let's not look at it from the number of incidents, but let's look at it from the perception, which is actually reflective of the entire situation. So I would say our waters are dangerous. Our waters are dangerous in a way that even the locals don't feel comfortable being in our waters. The fishing companies are not able to freely relax in our waters. The leisure boats who used to go out to Lagos, which you can say Lagos Anchorage, which you can say is relatively safe. We used to see a couple of them going out to fish, are no longer able to do that. So that's in terms of perception, which is as a result of recorded incidents. You can say that our waters are not safe.
What?
Well, I have said earlier, one of the most important threats is that of kidnappings. When this thing started at the beginning, we've had records of cargo being stolen, and for that to happen successfully, then you begin to go into organized crime, and governments have structures in place to easily checkmate or to combat organized crimes. And then since this is being planned from the shore and it has to be consummated at the shore, I want to believe that became a little bit difficult for the criminals to continue in the aspect of taking cargo when you can easily hold the crew hostage and keep them somewhere for a ransom. Well, I have said in different fora, in different places I found myself in recent times that first thing first, which is identification. There are issues that you have to resolve first. There are instruments already on ground. They are meant for different purposes. One of which is the AIS. It's nothing new. The class A and B. The class A being for vessels that go deep sea, and the class B for vessels that trade within the interland. Now, if you implement that, then automatically you are now saying that vessels without AIS cannot go outside to the breakwater. The difficulty in identifying, the challenge with an environment that cannot identify asset is, even when I physically see the boats that attack me steam away to a particular location, if you come to that location and find 10 similar boats, and I am able to say this is the one that attacked me, I really do not have evidence to prosecute that boat, because he is going to tell me, no, he has never moved. He has been there. So it's going to be my word against his word. Unless there is evidence to show the court, you will not be able to prosecute. You will not be able to hold that boat responsible, because there are about 10. Take Liverpool, for instance. A boat attack you and runs to Liverpool, and you go there and say, this boat attacked me. How will you be able to deal with that situation? So NIWA has to come into the game here, because the issue of AIS requires MMSI number, whether it is class A or B, and NIMASA is the authority that issues that. So NIWA will have to come into partnership with NIMASA to be able to ensure that all boats that move within these areas are recognized. Even the construction of boats, do we know who build boats? Do we even give them numbers? Just like we have our cars, you have chassis numbers of on cars, when you can trace them from who built them. So when you don't identify boats in our waters, then you have a problem. Then the second thing you would want to go into is identification of persons, access. People should not be able to go straight into the sea, in and out, because it's an open area. No, it should be controlled. If a boat is at sea, the Nigerian Navy from their platform, in NIMASA from their platform, every security agency that has access to scan this boat should be able to know that this boat belongs to Mr. Emmanuel. She was built by Shesan Shipyard. She is registered in Nigeria, no matter how small it is. And then go further to say she left Lagos the channel, to go to Lagos Anchorage, because on her manifest is showing she is going to empty Moses at the Lagos Anchorage, and she is carrying so number of crew and passengers, because you have locked them. Now, if the Navy sees her not going toward empty Moses, going somewhere else, then there is the probable cause for the Navy to put an eye. It's a red flag already. You want to look. So that way you can actually police the water with less resources, just by sitting in one place. You don't have to deploy assets, moving around, burning bunkers, causing pollution to the environment, just because you want to go and look at one tiny thing you could have looked at in the comfort of your office. So this identification system is step one, which I believe if we do that in Nigeria, significantly it will reduce the reported cases, so which some of them we contest. We say no, they are false alarm. Some the seafarers are saying no, it's not false alarm, and then you don't have the facts to check to be able to say no, this is actually a false alarm. Well, you see, people have opinion, people have experience, and like I said, these things come into play when we make decisions. Perhaps there are certain experiences that people have had that they believe in the deep blue sea so much, and I may be limited to those experiences, but it will be interesting for us to see how the deep blue sea would work. But coming from my experience, I would say generally, if I will ask you rhetorically back the question, you have a pirate who required just $20,000. from asset to operations to launch an attack. But your response, it's a $50 million asset, right? Yes, you can stop him with that. The Deep Blue Sea can do a lot in stopping the pirates, but I am of the opinion that let us not lose sight of other things that we need to do to complement the Deep Blue Sea. The sea is very vast. If these assets go out, how are they going to be able to fish out the criminals from the innocent ones? That is a big question. But in terms of responding to an attack, I see the Deep Blue Sea asset, the combination of the aerial infrastructure, the sea infrastructure, and the land infrastructure as a perfect combination to interject. But when it comes to preventive, we need something to add to the Deep Blue Sea. So the Deep Blue Sea has come into play. It's a very good investment in terms of providing assets to counter security threat. But let us not get carried away and forget that there are certain things that we need to do to make the Deep Blue Sea asset very effective. The international community, Norway is sending ships, everyone is sending, but you see, when they come into the Gulf of Guinea, they will need the cooperation of the states to be able to identify assets so that they can pick out the red flags. In our waters in Lagos, if there are boats or vessels that are sitting in our anchorage that serve as a mother vessel for pirates, how do we know? How do we provide the information to the Deep Blue Sea assets? How do we prevent that from even happening? And it is the only way, I think, both the Deep Blue Sea assets and the assets that are being sent by countries like Denmark, not Norway, sorry, and other European countries to come and help. It is that will form the basis in providing a platform for their assets to be successful in West Africa. They are not going to come here and be roaming around the sea. You may be 20, 30 nautical miles away. An attack is happening somewhere. For me, I will say I don't want to get into a situation where I will have to start negotiating with the pirates. It takes the pirates few minutes to get onto the vessel, and then bam, you have a hostage situation. Then the next thing you can do with all these assets is try to start negotiation. At that point, the harm to the seafarer has been done. It doesn't matter what you do. But what you can do to help the seafarer is to prevent that from happening in the first place. And that's the only way you can help the seafarer. I'm not going to be comfortable being in an environment where choppers are flying all over the time. Military boats are flying all over it's a war zone for me. It's not good for the psyche of a seafarer. Even if that place is recording zero attack in a year, I, as a seafarer, will not be comfortable being in that kind of environment. So it means the issue has not been addressed. We need to find a situation where a seafarer will go to a place, an environment, and see no patrol vessel, military patrol vessel, but of course, enforcement vessel to enforce maritime regulation. He wants to see people move freely. He wants to be able to get out from his ship and take a shore pass and go outside, go to a bar, go to a restaurant, eat something different from what you're eating from the ship, mingle with the locals, and come back to your vessel. That helps the seafarer get his job done better. But if you tie him up in a place, the moment he comes to a place, and then there's so much regulations, you can't move, you can't do this, I wouldn't want to go back to that environment unless I have to. And you have to understand that when that is happening, then shipping suffers. Whether it is the ship owner that puts the money or the country that puts the money to make sure that they provide this military form of security, at the end of the day, it is shipping that suffers.